Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today, in the backdrop of the beautiful Hawaii port, we are looking at the Brooklyn, the Tier 7 American light cruiser from the new light cruiser line. Now, we've talked about the Dallas before, and how she was very, very underwhelming in, well, pretty much all regards. So, I did something that I don't usually do, because I pride myself in trying to make every ship in the game work in some way. I actually free XP'd my way up to the Brooklyn, because the Dallas really did not work for me. So, what is the Brooklyn like? Now, historically, the Brooklyns were, I think, created in... The Brooklyn class was created about in the 1930s at some point, late 30s maybe, and they were a response to the Mogamis, because the Japanese had light cruisers with lots and lots of guns, so the Americans wanted some as well. So these were still treaty cruisers, so they were skimping on the armor to put a lot of guns in there, because, you know, gun turrets sit on their respective movable cylinders, plus the barbettes around them, and all that kind of machinery is relatively heavy. So you're very quickly ending up with a ship that's reaching its tonnage limit within the treaty, and you can't fit too much armor around it. So what's the Brooklyn like? Yeah, where would I go? 1937. Okay, I wasn't that far off. She's got 27,000 hit points, 10% citadel, 12.5 fire, 9% damage reduction, 9% torpedo. So kind of standard for a light cruiser. You have no armor. That's just something that you have to, but that's something you're used to in light cruisers. She's not particularly fast with 32 knots, but she's not super slow either. And the turn time of 6.5 seconds is actually very respectable. Excuse me. Just like the Mogamis, she has 15 150mm guns. And she has a very similar turret layout. So if we're going to take a closer look at that, we have, from this angle, so we have the B turret super firing and the C turret sitting underneath. And similar in the rear, the second turret is super firing to the first one. And all these are triple turrets. This means that you can get 6 guns pointing forwards if you're straight bow in. If you want to get any of the other turrets, even the C turret, even just the forward C turret to fire at the enemy, you actually have to angle in quite a bit to get that around to fire. Now, like I said, 15 152mm main guns, and that sounds amazing. Well, unfortunately, they're the exact same 152mm guns that we had on the Dallas. It's just more of them. The Dallas had 10. This thing has 15. I've actually at this point gotten the reload time down, because we're now at tier 7 and we're facing some serious opposition here. So I've got the reload time down to 8 seconds. Unfortunately, fitting the reload module meant that the already extremely squishy turrets get even more squishy. So you constantly lose them, which is a huge pain. The range isn't great, as we had in the Dallas. We're still at 10.3 kilometer at full upgrades. The damage isn't great, the same as on the Dallas. We do a 460 on HE, which means that against something like a battleship, you're probably doing less than 200 damage per shell. We only have a 4% fire chance, and we have 550 armor piercing damage. The armor piercing shells are actually not super terrible at close range, and they're very useful against destroyers. But you really struggle with battleships on these things, because they just lack the DPS. Because she, like the Dallas before her, has secondary guns. So we've got the standard American 127mm destroyer guns. We've got 8 single turrets and 5.7 kilometer, 6 second reload. They're not bad. They're not bad secondaries. Actually, they're doing almost as much damage as the primaries. Well, given that they're of similar caliber. But, well, yes, you have secondaries. You don't have torpedoes on these things. Now, she gets an improved anti-air. But again, at tier 7, I'm severely struggling to shoot down large number of fighter aircraft with this thing, because most of the anti-air power is in the small caliber, and the small caliber only has a 1.5 kilometer range. So it is not super easy to shoot planes down, even if they fly directly above. If the carrier player knows what they're doing and they're not hovering around over you, then you do damage, but she is by no means a super effective AA cruiser at tier 7. So what do we have for the elite bonus? There was an AA buff, and as you know by now, I don't usually go for AA specializations, just because you don't always face carriers, and even if you face carriers, especially if you're in a ship that is already known for a relatively good AA, there's a fair chance the carrier just goes somewhere else. So the other bonus look better. We get a bit better main battery traverse, we get a bit better ship speed, and we still get a bit more AA damage, so it's not all bad. In terms of modules, like I mentioned, I put the main battery mod 2 in here. I would have liked the precision mod, but it's not available at tier 7. And the main battery mod 2 gets the reload down to 8 seconds, but at a high cost. So I'm really not feeling this very much. I will probably switch over to the main battery mod 1 for the turret traverse, because the turrets just get shot off constantly. I'm burning repair kits more on fixing the turrets than extinguishing fires. Excuse me. I have the propulsion mod because she has a very good maneuverability to begin with. So having a bit more in terms of acceleration is a good thing. And I still have the steering gear mod 2 in the second slot. Could have done with the ship speed here, but I decided to go with the steering gear at the end, because you're in a light cruiser, and at some point you might have to dogfight, or you might have to try and kite battleships. So it's essential that you get this ship swung around as quickly as you can. Supplies, no surprises here. Crew rations for reload, maintenance for hit points, and diesel for ship speed. The captain is the same one from the Dallas. I haven't bothered to really upgrade him quite yet, but he has the exact same setup. He's got the artillery maintenance, he's got the AA expert, and he's got the daredevil skill, because you do lose hit points very, very quickly. While the American heavy cruisers are actually very well protected for cruisers, the light cruisers definitely are not. So you will get shot at, and you need to get uncomfortably close to targets to reliably hit them. So lastly, let's stick a camouflage on it. There's really no need for concealment on these things, so I'm just going to use one of the league camos that I have laying around anyway, and then we'll play around. And I'll show you if she's any good, in my opinion. Okay, looks like we are top tier, and there is a fair bunch of battleships out there. So, how do we play this ship? Well, these are support cruisers. They just don't have the DPS. We're playing Aurora, so I am probably going to head over towards C and just see what we can get done there. The armor piercing is relatively good against other light cruisers at point blank range, and especially against destroyers can be quite devastating. The shells feel like they're a bit quicker on the Dallas, although that might just really be my gut feeling. But they still have a very high firing arc and a relatively low shell velocity, so you have to lead miles ahead compared to what you're normally doing. But just from my gut feeling, it's not quite as terrible as on the Dallas. So and plus you got more guns, so throw more shit at the wall, something sticks eventually. Okay, so let's head forward and see what have we got here. There's one battleship. That's a bot, so we don't want to get too close. And we start opening up and get him to overshoot. And we still got the 8-second reload on the mains, which is relatively long. There we see, we get 3 hits at 8 kilometers, because the accuracy of these guns is not that great. That looks like a better, yeah, that's a better one. We got 10 and we got a single fire. So it is possible to set fires in this thing. But again, the relatively low fire chance is not great. So now we've got a fire set, another fire set, since these are bots. Okay, there we go. We're getting a bit lucky here. But we do need to disengage. We can use the secondaries at this range, so don't forget about them. But we do need to give quite a bit of lead to get the primary guns on target.
Our team captured the area.
Okay, now we gotta swing the turrets around, because we're gonna need to go the other way, because there's an island in the way. Well, we've done a fair amount of damage so far. There we got another fire. So sometimes you get lucky. And again, don't forget about the secondaries. So while you don't have torpedoes, you still, even something like the Colorado, you need to, which is a slow ship, you still need to lead quite a bit, because the shells do take quite a bit of time. So some of you have been asking me in the comments, how to aim with this thing, or in general with the light cruisers. And the answer is you need to lead your shot. So you see, I'm aiming well ahead of the Colorado, and still some of them are actually falling short behind her. So we do need to lead our shots a bit. The closer you get, the less you need to lead, obviously. Okay. See that we can get her killed now before she sets some armor piercing into us. Okay. That took a long time to burn that battleship down and to kill that battleship. So again, this was a bot. Against a real battleship, I would have struggled a hell of a lot more. Now, what do we got here? There's a Fiji, and there's a bot Fuso. So let's focus on our fire on the Fuso, and that's probably not enough lead. You see that on a normal shell that would have worked, but even with a very slow battleship like the Fuso, you do need to lead a bit more. So just kind of double the lead that you would normally give, and you should be alright. Again, the salvos are not super precise, which is why I said precision would have been better. But we do get some hits in, and given that we have a large number of guns, there's actually quite a bit we can do. Now the problem obviously is that we don't have a cap, so we do need to kill something here. And that's the Fuso down. But again, I'm shooting at bots here, so that's not necessarily a very representative measure for these things. And they're still holding all three caps. We're going to need to do something about that. I'm going to switch over to the armor piercing, because the Fiji is a light cruiser. And so is that destroyer out there. We do have a sonar. So in addition to the anti-air, to the air defense alert, we actually do have a sonar. And if nothing else dies, we should be able to actually pull this off. But I've had to run quite a bit. Oh, hello. So now we want to use our primaries to make sure that that destroyer doesn't kill our carrier, and at the same time we do need the cap. So I am kind of having to maneuver around here. And again, a destroyer at a range like this, you do need to lead your shots for quite a while. We only have 19 seconds to do. We have one cap, so we're gonna have to do something about that DD. Let's see if we can catch him. No, he's surviving on almost no health, but I think that one cap that we got, and we got him, but just after the battle ticks out. So that was a close one. And yeah, so carrying your team in one of these things is super hard, because you're a support cruiser. You can set fires to things, which makes a lot of damage on bots, But I mean, we've done 60,000 damage. We're in a tier 7 cruiser. And 20,000 of that is because the bot hasn't extinguished. And that's kind of my experience as well. So you can easily do around 30, 40,000 damage maybe. But higher than that is difficult because you really just don't have the firepower in this ship, even with 15 guns. You don't have the firepower in these ships to get the big numbers out. Whereas with like a Shores on tier 7 or you know, at tier 6 we could still argue, but at tier 7 we've got some excellent light cruisers. We've got the Russians, we've got the Italians, we've got the British light cruisers with the Fiji, which, okay, isn't super excellent, but I mean, at least she has torpedoes and a smokescreen. This thing is a one-trick pony. She can fire high explosive at battleships, and you need to throw an awful lot of high explosive at a battleship to deal with it. And if the battleship isn't a bot and actually know what they're doing, and, you know, there's very little you can do other than run away, kite away, and try to get as much as possible of high explosive shells into the battleship. So, I'm not super convinced. Let's do a second one, and then we'll go for a verdict. Okay, another carrier. We're still top tier. Notice we've got a Dunkirk, a Miyoko, and a Duca. I just mentioned it. So let's see how she holds up. We're playing Golden Channel. And we are support cruisers, so our role should be, well, we don't have torpedoes. So, well, there's an Auba, but that's a bot. Am I going to secure flank or am I going central? I'm going to try and go central because I do have the AA. But just hang back and see what goes. Usually in a cruiser I would go flank at this situation. But there are a lot of bots on the enemy team, and bots have a tendency to go right. By the way, this kind of behavior is not a good idea because you're blooming your detection, and you get spotted early on. You trigger the bot carrier to actually come after you. So it's not necessarily what you want. Okay, now we're spotted, obviously, and there's the Duca. So, and that's a bot Fubuki, so we don't need to worry about that. But we do need to worry about that ship, because that Italian is... Oh, we got a fire going on him. We've got 2 more fires going on him. We're really lucky with the fires today. Okay. I'm not usually that lucky. Well, let's see if we can get a permafire. Bigger problems. There's a Pensacola. Okay. Let's see if we can help this guy out a little bit here. Yeah, he's dead. No, we are set on fire. Obviously. The Duca, very good at setting fires. We still owe him a fire in return. There come in some Miyoko torpedoes. And another problem with the very long shell hang time is that it's actually very easy to dodge. We're getting a little low on health here. So you see the Duca's in the turn, so these shells are probably all gonna miss. Yeah. So we actually have to predict quite a bit more where he's gonna be. He's relatively slow after the turn, but still most of my shells are missing. More lead. Here comes some torpedoes. But he's completely straddled all these torpedoes. Let's keep an eye on the minimap. And I'm actually going to use my Hydro just to make sure that I'm not running into any Duca torpedoes. And at this range, we're probably going to switch over to the armor piercing. Just after this shot here. Nope.
The situation is under control.
There's probably torpedoes in the water. And you see, you need to give an awful lot of broadside to get these guns pointed around. Okay. But this is gonna be close. Nope. Miyoko gets us. You see, this is the problem, right? I've been constantly shooting at enemy ships at mid to point blank range. The match is more than half over, and there hasn't been a moment that I haven't been firing my guns. I've done 27,000 points of damage. This is ridiculous, right? This is a ridiculously low amount of damage to do with a tier 7 light cruiser, in my opinion. Light cruisers, for me, are ships that do large amounts of damage. I'm just going to leave this battle because there's nothing more interesting happening here. We've lost this, obviously. Light cruisers, for me, are ships that have a high damage output, very low armor, and are mobile. You can aggressively push positions, or you can hold positions. But with this ship, it is super hard, even with 15 guns, even if you're getting a little bit lucky with the fires. It's just a huge amount of problems that you have with the ship, because she doesn't have torpedoes, the high firing arcs, the slow shell velocity, the relative lack of precision, the absolute lack of armor. All these things, for me, make this a bad ship. This is one of my least... Oh, yep, there we go. Lost this one. This is one of my least favorite ships, honestly, in tier 7. I couldn't think of another tier 7 ship that I would not... I couldn't think of any other tier 7 ship that I would prefer to this. So, has the tier 7 change done anything for us? Not really. We have the air defense alert, which comes in useful once in a while, but the air defense isn't strong enough to make a really huge impact. We have the sonar, which is useful occasionally to spot torpedoes early, but then again, if you have a decent torpedo sense, okay, she can hunt destroyers. The problem is she can't do it if anything else supports them. Even other light cruisers can make your life miserable, and not even talking about heavy cruisers. You basically don't stand a chance against any other kind of ship except for destroyers. Destroyers is something that you can deal with at close range. Everything else you're hugely struggling with. You can't carry. Now, you can try and support, but you can't carry your team with this ship, and you can't get the damage out that you need, even with 15 guns. I'll take one of the... Look, this is the answer to the Mogami, right? I mean, in real life. So if we look at the Mogami, because I've got her somewhere around here, then we'll look at the Mogami. She has very comparable armor, probably less torpedo protection. She's faster. She's more maneuverable. She has 15 guns. They do reload slightly slower, but they have a 5% fire chance. And that is all the difference. That 1% fire chance is all the difference. They are more precise. Plus, she's got 4 triple launches of 8-kilometer range torpedoes. Now, granted, they don't have a great firing arc, but she has them. This ship has a massive damage potential. And this 1% fire chance plus the excellent torpedoes make all the difference. The Brooklyn doesn't have any of that. I think the buff that they introduced to increase the range by 300 meters isn't going to be enough. The 4% fire chance is where it's struggling for me, especially given that you don't have torpedoes on these ships. So, nope, I'm sorry. This is a light cruiser that I don't like. And if we look ahead, I mean, I would need 142k to get to the Cleveland, and I might get there eventually, just out of morbid curiosity. What does the Cleveland have? The Cleveland gets radar, which, yeah, sounds useful. The Cleveland has similar armor layout probably. She's not the fastest. She's relatively maneuverable. She's got 12 guns and a 6.5 second reload. Now, this is something that might work. Right? A 6.5 second autoloader might do the trick. And she looks like she might have a bit of a better range as well. So this might be a semi-decent HE spammer tier 8 light cruiser. But again, she has to compete with something like the Shapayev, which is more damage in everything. So the Cleveland might be viable, but I'm still not usually excited about her. So for me, I'm going to leave it off at this point, and I have other things that I'm much more excited about. The American light cruiser line is just not worth it for me because of the weaknesses in damage output that these ships have. And, well, just that, really. So, that's it for today. I hope you found that interesting. If you have different opinions, or if you have better ways of playing these ships, please do leave me a comment. I'm always keen to learn how other people think about this. But for me, that's it for today. Have a good weekend still, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye.